So thanks very much for coming on this Sunday afternoon. And we've got a very nice small amount of people here so we can be more like informal in a way. But let's see how it goes. My name is Roma Piotrowska and I'm an independent curator. I'm very grateful for Halina and Anya and Megan to invite me here today. And I've known Stryx for many years now, almost from the beginning. So I've been watching different exhibitions that Stryx organizes, and I'm very pleased that I can have a closer look at this wonderful exhibition. I'm sure that all of you have already had a proper look at it. I don't know if you've been here seeing this exhibition before, because this is my first proper look on this show, and I haven't seen the previous stages of this exhibition. But before we go to that, I would like to also thank you, Rob Hamp and Halina Dominska for giving this talk today. And just to explain a little bit where Halina is now. So Halina is broadcasting live from a place called Sydney Nolan Trust, which is in Wales, and actually on a Welsh and Midlands border. So about 2 hours drive from here. And she's having a residency for 10 days residency. She was chosen as one of the recent graduates to do a residency there, and I think today is her last day, and that's why we will be speaking to her on Skype. And just to let you know that Halina cannot see us, but we can see Halina. So hi, Halina. To give you also, well, you probably know Rob already, and Halina possibly as well, but just to give you a very brief introduction. Rob and Halina both are recent graduates. You, Rob, studied at Coventry University. You did your BA there in Fine Art, am I right? And that was a year ago, you graduated, no? 2 years ago. And Halina, I think, similar situation, but Halina graduated from the Birmingham City University, and you both were chosen to show your work at the new Art West Midlands exhibition. Was it the same year or different years?
Yeah, I was the winner.
You were the winner. Congratulations. But that was the same year you were showing your work at the exhibition, the new Art West Midlands?
Yeah, I said that I couldn't do a residency at the time because of today. So I took the cash prize because I wanted to be here today. Okay, well,
thank you very much for that.
Okay, sorry, so I exhibited at the Waterfall Gallery for New Arts West Midlands, and Halina exhibited at the MAC. So I think there were quite a number of people who came to me, and to other people, actually Carolina as well, I believe, and Anna, who runs Stryx, and sort of said that they felt there was some kind of resonance between our work, although we were exhibiting in different venues. And so, without knowing really anything about Halina and her practice up until that stage, it was really interesting to sort of then start to have a conversation about if it was just a visual thing, or whether actually there was a lot more knowledge, a lot more sort of the underpinning, put the work together in some ways. It was quite interesting actually how many things we had which were quite similar in terms of what was underpinning our work, really, although it actually is very, very different. So I found that quite exciting.
So yeah, can we talk just very briefly about where did the idea come from to show together? How this show actually, whose idea was it, and why?
Well, I kind of had this, I had this vision for using this space for my work. But my work always starts with a narrative. And I spoke to Anna and then Carolina about a scenario of doing something with the space, because I think it would have, well, I think it works for my work. And then the whole conversation sort of grew into, well, how would this work with Halina, and could we sort of actually try the thing that some people are actually talking about. Some people are talking about what would it be like if your work was together rather than one in the Mac and one in the waterfall.
Okay. But so, why this particular work? Why Halina? Why is it? Was it because I know Halina is resident here at Stryx. So was it this connection to Stryx that you wanted to work with Stryx and one of the artists that have their studio here, or?
No, I mean I wouldn't work like that, to be perfectly honest. It was actually solely because of what I visually saw when I looked at Halina's work at the Mac.
Okay.
For me, it was the one piece of work that stood out above any others in terms of how it engaged me as a viewer. And I was like, wow, I'm interested in this. I'm interested in the performative element of it. I was interested in the interaction that it caused for the audience, and visually I was just excited by looking at the work itself. And for me, it kind of was a very, very strong piece of work within the Mac.
Well, you just told us that you were inspired. Well, you looked at the work and you thought that it was very different and special. And could you say that it inspired you to make your work? Was it this triggering point to make your work, or tell us the story behind them?
Well, I think what happened was when I went to New Art West Midlands at the Mac, I was really intrigued and engaged by Halina's work. I thought it wasn't particularly well set out, or it wasn't particularly well set out in the way that I would have set it out.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not the artist,
Yes.
so it wasn't actually my choice. But I was actually intrigued as to why it was set out in that way. And I was intrigued as to how Halina would set out the work if she was to recycle it, to use that work again in a different environment. And actually, for me, an environment that actually works better for the work. Obviously, there are huge, opportunities with things like New Arts West Midlands, but it was actually a space that was, I believe, controlling of the work rather than the work controlling the space. So for me, it needed to sit somewhere separate to that, where it could actually breathe, where it could be what it wanted to be. And the mechanism for my work is actually really having something happen that starts the ball rolling. And because there was this intrigue in Halina's work, and not knowing Halina, or never actually meeting Halina, I was intrigued as to what she would do with that work in a different sort of environment. So the whole we met, and a conversation was had, we didn't have that conversation in this space. So I knew this space, Halina knew this space, obviously, because she's had a studio here. And Halina gave me an indication of what she was going to do with her work if we were going to work together. And that's all I wanted. I didn't want to know mechanically how they worked or anything more than the thing that actually started the ball rolling for me with my narrative.
So what did she tell you?
So basically, it was a bit of a question-answer session, really. So Halina said that she would continue to use the 7 pieces, going to keep it identical in terms of quantity to what she'd done at the Mac. So she was going to use 7, but she was going to run them more in a line, a flowing line, rather than before they were kind of in a far more circular sort of format. And my question to her was, okay, so how many will be in the darkened area and how many will be in the lightened area? Because this resonates very much with my work, which I can explain in a minute or two. And when she said that 5 would sit in the darkened space and 2 would be in the light space, that was it. That's all I needed to know. Because for me, within a split second, I was just thinking 7 years, 5 years have passed, 2 years before us. That was it. So that started the whole ball rolling with what I was actually going to do through my work.
I know that, well, from what you can see, your work is very abstract. It's use of found objects, and the meaning is not that obvious. So I just wanted to ask you, well, there are titles to your work that can suggest that there is a further meaning to it. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about that meaning, and I know that you have a narrative also going on. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so first and foremost, I wouldn't say the objects are found. Mm-hmm. I'd say the objects are selected. Mm-hmm. If I looked at everything and found everything and picked everything up, I would be in a great deal of trouble at home. They are actually, they are genuinely selected objects. Okay. Yeah. So, in probably most simplistic terms, in my work there are always 3 characters, A, B and C. I don't want to start to give them names. I'm not interested in the names. They all start off, as we all do at birth, with exactly the same situation. And then things occur through life. So I build a narrative on those lines, and certain actions ensue along the way as I actually write the actual piece. Usually, the conclusion, what you see today, comes before what people saw 2 weeks ago. And the reason being for that is, I remember as a child, one of the most, not necessarily exciting things, but something that really interested me was when you would go into the cinema with 15, 20 minutes to go, and you would watch the conclusion of a film, and then sit and wait in there, and then wait for it to start again, and watch it through. And that really interested me. And that interested me to the point that I started doing jigsaws, like, without seeing the picture, stuff like that. You know. It's kind of quite interesting, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I think it's quite exciting, really. So that's where it came from. And what I absolutely love is this scenario where what you're actually seeing as your starting point, i.e. what was seen 2 weeks ago, isn't actually physically what you are seeing. You are seeing something that obviously exists, but you're not seeing it as the author is seeing it. You're seeing it as you are seeing it. Mm-hmm. It's the truth for you. It might not be the truth for me.
Okay, so you leave in a way, you leave the interpretation to the viewer. You are not imposing any story or meaning behind it, or you do?
No, it's completely down to the viewer. It's not actually important to me that actually the viewer knows there is a narrative.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter really. Mm-hmm. Otherwise I'll put my written work up on the wall.
Yes, you don't do that, do you?
No.
Okay, so this is just this story and narrative is a starting point for you to develop the work. But actually you won't share the story with us, would you? Yeah,
I mean, if you work on the, let me read this to you, if that's okay, because this might help. So these 2 here are about this piece of work, and these, I guess, are kind of a bit more of an underpinning as to how I work and what mechanics I use, I guess. So where there is a distinction between the real and the unreal, I'm looking at the distinctions between the real and the unreal, and what is actually seen and unseen. And with such little evidence, each component in this case, which is 7, is as relevant or as irrelevant as any other. So you came in and you weren't looking at that work in the same way that I was looking at it. Everybody looked at it in their own way. Some people looked at it as 7, some people looked at it as 1, some people looked at it as pink, some people looked at it as it's in the way, some people looked at, this is where it's very interesting. Some people looked at it, were more interested in the shadow that was formed from it. We all had different interpretations. I looked at it from not seeing it, because I wrote my work before I had seen it. So I think that's how we came to this scenario of the unseen. The work was created without actually seeing the work, but only having the work explained. The search for a truth drives my endeavour. Searching is also the task of the audience. The truths and untruths presented so as to tease. So I'm looking to tease you into having a period of time to think you know what I'm thinking. Are you okay?
Do you have a question?
No.
It is this. And as I said, the birth of the characters is A, B, and C. By the time we get to the conclusion, it's X, Y, and Z. They haven't taken on names. They haven't become something that I've become emotionally attached to. They are just now X, Y, and Z. And the word or the words that I write must be transferred to object to conjure perspective. So the writing that I do, I purge down to object and material. And that's why it's really important that it's selected rather than a found object. So I know from purging it down what it needs to be to do what I want it to do or what I want it to say. Is that, yeah? So in that conclusive state, it's X, Y, and Z, and it celebrates no future beyond this visual presentation. So Z being the final letter of the alphabet, after this, it's gone. You'll see when you look at the work that Z is in a recoiled state. And that's because there's been a long past truth. So there's a timeline in the fact that it's recoiling. The truth is destined to not so easily slip through your fingers if it's shattered glass or if it is something like broken ice. So the idea is that once you find the truth in the conclusive stages, you don't want it to slip through your fingers. Or myself as the author or artist, I don't want it to slip through your fingers. I want you to be able to hold on to it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Well, we will try to break it down.
Okay, so sometimes you stumble upon the truth through the darkness. And I'll move, you just have to go with me on this for a second. Okay.
It's a trust thing, is it?
Oh yeah, please, trust me, yeah. The moles are blinded by the light and the truth. They head forward, but is it future proof? My proof is tomorrow this will all be gone. The space will remain. The floor, spelled F-L-A-W, will never be anything but hard. However, the shadow will continue on moving, truthfully and in real time from darkness to light will continue. So, to clear up exactly what I've done here is we started with a scenario that, and I'll read this out to you so before we get completely bored. Okay, so it was a soft blow of a late frost that did for the weaker bulbs. Okay, they saw no light of day. So in the first pieces of work you saw that the bulbs had been smashed and the belief was the bulb was a light, whereas actually the bulb was something within the garden. The floor with hard borders reinstated and a garden meticulously manicured to the nth degree. So it was all about actually holding on to the framework, not letting the framework in any way be got rid of. And what basically I was looking to do was have people think that the bulb was literally, that the bulb had been smashed because we needed to get rid of the light. Mm-hmm. Whereas actually the bulb was something that was springing because we wanted to actually let out as much of the truth as we could about the hard floor. And it was the moles that were actually trying to decipher the truth. So by the final chapter, the moles have managed to break through the hard floor and they're celebrating it with the lemon and the ice and they're moving towards the door.
Well, I would have never guessed that.
I'm with you on that.
It's like quite self-explanatory.
But it's so interesting because when you look at this work, it just, for me, it's so abstract and it just, objects, I usually take this kind of work as pure form. And then you add so much meaning to it, and in a way these objects are symbolical for you. You understand the symbolism of them. And could you break down a bit more what other objects mean to you and what they are symbolizing to you?
Okay, so the mature Stilton cheese is basically the mature judge, and the judge hears the case, and now the judge has been gagged. So if you have a look at it now, the actual cheese has been gagged with tape, so it can no longer hear the case. So the floor has no judge anymore. He has no one fighting his case at all, and that's why he's recoiling and being pulled back into his place. And the floor is very, very hard. So the floor is obviously F-L-A-W. The floor is incredibly hard, and is never going to change. And it's only when there are many, many moles and they try to surface in so many places that they actually break down the hardened floor. So you can't break down a hardened floor in one or two goes. What you have to do is you have to have a full-on attack. And that's what basically happens. And so the original bulbs that are damaged by the very, very hard frost that happens in late spring, which destroys those bulbs, what they do finally is they destroy the floor by destroying his garden. So the moles, in the end, destroy his garden, destroy his reinstated bordering, the way he's manicured his garden. They actually beat him. And by doing that, basically, they are able to look across at Halina's work with the really big bulbs, the bulbs that did actually survive that have actually penetrated through the hard floor.
And this is what these are?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are the what do they represent now?
So they are actually flowers.
The flowers.
Yeah.
Why this narrative is so important for you?
Well, I've kind of done something for years and years and years, written stuff like this for years and years and years, and then actually found that there was a way of using it in visual format. So if you look at something I'm really interested in is truth to material. So if a material that's used, if a character in a chapter is telling the truth, the selected object has to be a truthful material. So, for instance, it would be oak. If that character is telling a lie, then it might be, say, MDF.
Okay.
If that character tells many, many lies, they're a perpetual liar, then it might be plywood, because there's layers of lies that they tell. And if in that chapter we don't know, then the product is painted. So we don't know whether it's oak or MDF or plywood. We have no idea.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I also would like to ask, well, kind of point out that the fact that it's quite visible that your work could be considered as quite masculine just because the objects you're using, things that are related or that you could associate with masculinity. But on the other hand, you've got Halina's work that can be associated with feminine aspects. I just would like you to comment on that. Do you think what I just said is something that you would agree with?
To answer your question, is male or female, more masculine, not. If you work on the basis that the two moles that have escaped in year 6 are because they're fed up of wearing stockings for the male that they've had to for year 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So they're celebrating that with the gin and tonic as they crash through the surface of the hard floor.
Sorry, what are the moles again? What do they represent?
The moles are the females.
Moles are female.
Yeah. Can I say any more? Basically, A, B and C, you've got a situation where there is equality. The mole or the two females have escaped from the hard floor. And that's actually shown through breaking through the surface. It's shown by the shattering of the glass, the breaking of the ice. Today you see how many times that's actually tried to be achieved over the years before it was actually possible.
So you're saying that the work is not as masculine as it appears to be from the first sight?
It's potentially meant to have a slight fear of masculinity because of the level of aggression that's been there for 5 years. But you're in year 6. Maybe it'd even be less masculine by year 7, I don't know. But that's your timeline, and it's the 6th year that is actually highlighted that's now in the light.
Do you have any questions? The audience, I will ask you to ask questions now.
I think I would like to have an experience of Halina's work because I came to the opening and I've been now, but I've seen it, but I haven't experienced it. So I think I'd like to just go and do that. That's all.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll come with you.
So it's interactive, it moves.
Is it
It's
on?
just imperceptible.
It should move. Is it on?
Oh, this one's a bit there.
Just there.
Let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, and yeah, we can just continue talking with, between ourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roma.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Halina.
Thank you, Stryx.
Thank you.
Thank you, Halina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stryx.
Bye.